Very recently, Chris Hemsworth took a journey into the world of longevity. Along that path, he learned that he carried the gene for Alzheimer's on both sides of his family. This revelation led to him taking a hiatus from acting, which, given his achievements and love of family, is probably a great idea. 20 years ago, this would have been devastating news to Chris, or anyone standing in his shoes. However, in this day and age, I believe there's more reason than ever for hope. Because knowing what I know now, I'm confident that Chris will go on to beat the odds and live a full, healthy, happy life. Here's how. He'll take full advantage of all that we know about genes, what stimulates a gene to switch on and off, and the practices that regulate deep cellular health. I've summarized this in 3 victory strategies, the third of which can be applied to cellular conditions of the brain, heart, and even cancer. So if degenerative illness runs along in your family, watch this till the end.
Strategy 1.
Control genetic expression. Alzheimer's is marked by the presence of the APOE4 gene, associated with a range of neurodegenerative diseases, and a gene that Chris carries not 1 but 2 copies of. So Chris's major challenge is to understand how genes are triggered to express their traits, and how the mind can influence and regulate genetic health so certain attributes, though present, are never expressed. This leads us deeply into the study of epigenetics, and one of the doctors most knowledgeable in this field is of course Bruce Lipton, who's about to tell us why genes do not determine our health and how we can learn to control genetic expression.
In school, most people learn the science of genetics, which is the belief that genes control our traits. This science is really based on the fact that we get our genes from our mother and father at the moment of conception, and that these genes at that moment of conception actually will determine the rest of our lives in regard to our physical, emotional, and behavioral characteristics. A new science is called epigenetics. And epigenetics is an understanding that genes are not self-actualizing, meaning genes do not turn on and off. Genes are just blueprints. And the significance of that is that in order to engage a blueprint, it's not the blueprint's activity, it's the contractor's activity, the one who reads the blueprint that controls the blueprint. So in epigenetics, it's a science of how environmental information selects the genes and can modify the readout of the genes. And this becomes very significant because in genetic control, the old story, we are victims of our genetics. And the new story, epigenetics, because we can change the readout of the genes, we can then become masters of our genetics. And this becomes important because we actually control our health with our beliefs, our perceptions, and our attitudes about life. And it turns out that energy vibration as a means of communication is 100 times more efficient than trying to communicate with the body through chemistry. So we have a new understanding of how to control our body, and it's through energy fields and vibrations, which include thoughts.
We can influence our genes by achieving a state of psycho-emotional coherence, which involves resting our mind's awareness deeply in the healing energy of our heart. That's because the heart produces a large energy field and frequency that influences every cell in our body. However, overthinking can interfere with this field and disrupt cell activity, which in turn influences the genes. When this field is harmonized, cell behavior is optimized, supporting better genetic health. Achieving this involves getting the brain linked up harmoniously with our heart. And a quick and easy way to do this is by placing your hand upon your solar plexus and silently expressing gratitude towards your heart. Do this for a minute and you'll entrain your mind to be in harmony with the heart, producing a coherent energy field that will influence the health and function of your cells. Practice this often, and in time, this will become your default conscious setting. Science coming out of the Heart Math Institute demonstrates just how significantly the thoughts we think can influence our cells and the genes they contain within. So remember this, peace in the mind becomes peace in the body.
Strategy 2.
Harness nature. Every year, new research is produced in relation to improving brain health via herbs and holistic remedies, all a part of nature. Let's consider these now. First up, Enzyme COQ10. Not only highly neuroprotective, this enzyme is indicated to reduce the factors thought to be closely associated with Alzheimer's. More research comes out on this every year it seems, much of which is positive. Secondly, Acetyl L-Carnatine, a naturally occurring amino acid that promotes the transportation of free fatty acids into the cells, producing cellular energy, widely thought to help protect neurons. Also, a number of traditional Chinese herbs are indicated for potential neuroprotective effects against Alzheimer's. While conclusive research is still required, traditional Chinese herbs show promise. Evidence strongly suggests slow martial art styles like Tai Chi build and strengthen grey matter over time, boosting memory and improving vision in later years. Dancing can also have positive effects of this nature. The more complex the dance, the better. In his show Limitless, Chris is dropped by helicopter into the Australian bush with nothing other than his brain to guide him to a point where he'll be picked up again. A neuroscientist shares why the show did this.
There's a very specific reason why I've set Chris and Otis loose in the wilderness without anything to help him navigate.
So, what do you reckon? Is the gully over here now? Looks like it.
Yeah, this way, I reckon.
The process of figuring out the right direction to go in is one of the most complex tasks our brains can perform.
Up the ridge line, follow the water, stream, waterfall, turn left. Yeah, this is good.
And it relies on a region of the brain that's critical to how we process the world around us. It's called the hippocampus, the brain's memory center.
So through connecting with nature, Chris is actually helping his brain to grow in new and dynamic ways. And while his brain is busy growing, it won't be degenerating. And we can do the same. Through getting out of our everyday patterns and connecting with nature, we allow our brain to grow in new ways, something called neuroplasticity, which is essential in staving off degenerative illness, especially Alzheimer's. And more evidence emerges each year about how nature can protect our nerves and brain.
Strategy 3.
Manage the cellular environment. In the fight against Alzheimer's, maximizing neurological nutrition is essential. Blood flow must be optimized continuously to the nerves and brain. This requires exercise, motion, and freedom of muscles. Now for Chris, this is already a given. His workouts are legendary. Well, you don't get to portray a god in Hollywood without putting in some serious yards. But for the rest of us, we want to be getting about 3 hours of medium to high intensity cardio per week and ensuring our muscles experience regular resistance. Think walking up hills, gentle weight training, swimming or climbing. All of this feeds our brain and nervous system. The other big thing? Reduce chronic inflammation. Inflammation is associated with brain degeneration. To reduce it, limit consumption of meats, avoid processed foods, increase vegetables, especially green ones, take legumes, and the odd handful of seeds and nuts. Hydrate well and get plenty of sleep. You know the drill. This will lead to a lower likelihood of heart disease and cancer, and a longer, healthier, happier life. And remember, we're moving into a time of incredible medical advancement. Nanotech, cell biology, nutrition, and epigenetics are all taking quantum strides. By the time Chris is in his 60s, it's possible the medical landscape will have been so transformed as to have made Alzheimer's a thing of the past. And there's more good news for Chris. He's got years, literally decades, to ensure a healthy cellular environment in which his genetic health can thrive. If his genes are happy with the cellular environment he creates, they'll serve him well for years to come. Years during which Chris can take further advantage of medical advancements as they come along. So I believe Chris is going to win this fight for himself and his family. And if he can, we can. Thanks for watching.